The parade field of Camp Westfall stretched out like a massive steel gray carpet beneath the early morning haze, the kind of mist that clung to uniforms, boots, and skin like a silent observer. 500 Navy personnel stood in formation, arranged in rows that seemed to stretch endlessly across the asphalt. Their breaths, faint clouds in the cold, were barely visible, but their tension was unmistakable. Everyone had heard the rumors. Today, the new female recruit was being tested by the one man who never tolerated weakness, the one man feared even by seasoned operators, SEAL Sergeant Hale. The orders had been clear. Every recruit was to report at dawn. No excuses, no exceptions. When Sergeant Hale tested someone, he expected the entire base to witness it. And today, the target of his attention was a young lieutenant named Arya Locke. Whispers carried through the formation like electricity. Some said she'd broken training records no woman had ever touched. Others said she was too bold, too confident, and Hale despised confidence. Some said she had a past classified enough to make even commanders nervous. But the truth was, nobody really knew her beyond the reputation that had spread faster than wildfire. Arya stood alone at the front of the formation, 5'7", lean, alert, and unsettlingly calm. Her dark hair was tied back tight, her jaw set, her eyes locked forward with a focus that made even the higher-ranked officers uneasy. She wasn't trembling, wasn't breathing hard, wasn't glancing around to read reactions. She simply stood there as if the chaos around her wasn't chaos at all, but something she had expected. Sergeant Hale stepped forward, boots hitting the ground with a rhythm that reminded recruits of incoming artillery. He was a mountain disguised as a man, broad, scarred, and radiating a dominance built over 20 years in the teams. He stopped in front of Arya, towering over her like a wall of muscle and fury. "So," he said, his voice a gravel-thick growl that carried across the field, "you're the one they keep talking about." Arya didn't flinch. "If they means the training roster, then yes, Sergeant." The field reacted with a subtle wave of tension. 500 sets of eyes widened. Some winced. Some held their breath. Nobody talked to Sergeant Hale like that. Nobody. Hale tilted his head, studying her as if she were a bomb he was considering disarming, or detonating. "Your confidence is impressive," he said slowly. "But out here, confidence gets you killed." "Out here," Arya replied, hesitation does the same. A low murmur rippled across the formation. Hale's jaw tightened. He gestured at her with a tone that was part insult, part warning. "You think you can do what we do? Earn what we earn? Prove it, right here, right now." Arya didn't blink. "I didn't come here to talk, Sergeant." Hale stepped closer, invading her space. "Then know your place, Lieutenant." A command officer, watching from the side, shifted uncomfortably, sensing the storm about to hit. Hale was notorious for pushing recruits beyond the breaking point, but he had never used physical force on an officer in front of the entire camp. Until now, Hale moved so fast that even the operators in the crowd barely processed it. His hand snapped forward in a sharp arc, a strike aimed straight at Arya's face. A message, a warning, a humiliation, but it never landed. Arya caught his wrist midair with a precision that defied logic. Time seemed to freeze. Hale's eyes widened, not in fear but in disbelief. Then, before anyone could react, she twisted. A sickening crack echoed across the field. The formation jerked like a single organism. Gasps, shock, confusion. Hale roared in pain, dropping to one knee, but Arya didn't let go. He swung his other fist toward her ribs, but she shifted, caught that wrist as well, and twisted hard and fast. Another crack. 500 troops stood frozen, unable to process what had happened. A lieutenant, barely through her advanced training, had just snapped both wrists of the most feared SEAL sergeant on base before he'd even realized he was in danger. But the moment didn't feel triumphant. It felt heavy, electric, dangerous. Hale's expression wasn't broken, it was furious. "You think this proves anything?" he snarled, struggling to get up, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. "You caught me off guard." Arya stepped back, giving him space, not out of fear but out of respect. "I didn't strike first, Sergeant. You did, and if you want another demonstration, I'm right here." The officers watching from the sidelines exchanged stunned glances. The base commander whispered something to his adjutant, something about protocol, about consequences, about the inevitability of what came next. Hale tried to stand but faltered. His wrists hung at angles no human joint should tolerate. The crowd was dead silent, unsure if they had just witnessed the rise of a legend or the beginning of a disaster. Arya turned toward the formation. "Let this be a reminder," she said, her voice steady and clear, "that discipline works both ways. Rank doesn't excuse abuse, and respect isn't demanded, it's earned." Some recruits swallowed hard, some looked inspired, some looked terrified, but nobody looked away. Hale, breathing heavily, stared at her with a fire that could melt steel. "This isn't over. You don't get to walk into my domain and embarrass me." Arya met his gaze without hesitation. "Then maybe your domain needs reevaluating." The base commander stepped forward suddenly, shouting, "That's enough. Medical to the field. Sergeant Hale, stand down. Lieutenant Locke, with me." Arya nodded respectfully, then glanced once more at the stunned troops. "Before I go," she said, "make sure you subscribe to Bravo Warrior Stories so you don't miss what comes next." A slight smile touched her lips, cool, controlled, confident. "Because trust me, it's only getting started." As medics rushed in, the troops finally broke their silence, whispering, murmuring, trying to piece together what they had just witnessed. Some thought Arya had ended her career in one moment. Others believed she had just changed military history. Arya followed the commander into his office, her steps steady. He closed the door behind them, exhaling deeply. "Lieutenant Locke," he said, "I need to understand exactly what happened." "He struck first," Arya replied. "Everything after that was instinct." The commander nodded slowly. "The security footage confirms that. And the Pentagon's already asking questions." "But Locke," he paused, studying her. "Your reflexes weren't normal. Your timing wasn't normal. Your restraint wasn't normal." Arya didn't speak. "Your file," he continued, lowering his voice, "is incomplete. Redacted. Even at my level. So I need you to tell me who trained you." She held his gaze. "That's above your clearance, sir." He exhaled through his nose. Not angry, impressed. "So the rumors are true." "Rumors aren't my concern," she said. "Duty is." Outside, the medics were stabilizing Hale, who, despite his injuries, looked more furious than injured. He barked instructions with his elbows, refusing a stretcher, refusing help. The commander looked out the window at the chaos. "Hale will want retribution, I'm aware. And he'll try," the commander added, even with both arms in casts. Arya nodded. "Then I'll be ready." The commander leaned back in his chair. "You understand what's coming, right? There will be an inquiry. A review board, possibly, even federal oversight." "I know. And you're not afraid." Arya's expression remained calm. "Fear is a luxury. Purpose isn't." The commander almost smiled. "You do realize that half the base now thinks you're some kind of myth." "A myth doesn't bleed. A soldier does." Before he could respond, the door swung open. A captain rushed in, breathless. "Sir, you need to see this. Sergeant Hale is demanding a rematch, in the training cage." The commander groaned. "With broken wrists. He said he'll use his elbows and knees." Arya tilted her head. "He's persistent. He's insane," the commander corrected. "And if you fight him again, the Pentagon will shut this place down." Arya considered that. "Then I won't fight him." The commander blinked. "Good. Unless," Arya added quietly, "he forces my hand again." And that possibility hung in the air like a blade. The commander ordered Hale restrained, but the sergeant burst free of the medical staff with such force that even the stretcher flipped. He stormed toward the training cage, yelling for Arya with a rage that echoed across the base. Recruits followed. Officers followed. Even medics followed. They all gathered around the cage as Hale stepped inside, hands useless, wrists wrapped, ready to fight with everything else he had. Arya walked up calmly, stopping outside the cage. "Sergeant Hale," she said, "stand down." "Get in here," he snarled. "No, you embarrassed me in front of 500 troops. You attacked a superior officer," she countered. "You embarrassed yourself." He lunged at the bars, fury boiling over. "I'll tear you apart." Arya sighed. "Sergeant, you can't win." "Then get in here and prove it." The crowd held its breath. Arya stepped forward, but instead of entering, she leaned against the cage door and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, If you want to know how this ends, subscribe to Bravo Warrior Stories right now. Because this part, you won't believe. Some recruits laughed nervously. Some actually pulled out their phones. Hale roared, slamming his shoulder into the metal. Arya finally spoke softly. Sergeant Hale, look at your wrists. He froze. You're not fighting me, she said. You're fighting your pride. And that battle, you already lost. The rage in Hale's eyes flickered, then slowly faded. The truth hit him harder than her counters had. He looked down at his useless wrists. Looked back at her. Looked at the crowd watching him crumble. Then he sank to one knee, not in defeat, but in realization. You're not here to replace me, he said quietly. Are you? No, Sergeant, she replied. I'm here to make sure nobody abuses the uniform we both respect. For the first time, Hale looked at her not with anger, but with something closer to understanding. And maybe even respect. When medics led him away, he didn't fight. Not this time. The base commander turned to Arya. Lieutenant Locke, he said, do you know what you've done today? Yes, she said, I set the record straight. And what record is that? That strength, she answered, has nothing to do with gender. And everything to do with discipline. The commander nodded slowly. This won't be the last challenge you face. I know, she said softly. But I'll face it head on. As the sun finally broke through the morning haze, the entire base buzzed with stories, rumors, and disbelief. Some said she was dangerous. Some said she was the future. Some said Hale had finally met his match. But one thing was certain. Arya Locke had just become the most talked about soldier on the Westfall base. And this was only the beginning. She glanced once more at the formation of troops, a faint smile touching her lips. If you want the next chapter, she whispered as she walked away, subscribe to Bravo Warrior Stories. You won't want to miss what's coming.